I want to look at some of your options for aligning text within the text editor. Now, there are three buttons at the very top here that show you several alignments. Of course, centering and right align and left align. Keep in mind, by the way, left align is the default in HTML, so you don't have to tell this to be left aligned. It will always be that way unless you tell it otherwise. And a good example of that is if you've centered it, for example, and you want to make it left aligned again, you could go like this, but you're hard coding. You're putting in specific HTML to tell it to left align. Look at that. You can see there in the HTML, it's specifically styled. This is what's called an inline style. So it's going to do whatever it wants to do, no matter what else you tell paragraphs to do. This is going to follow its own style because it's an inline style. So the point here is that if you've got this centered, instead of hitting left aligned, simply take off the centering. And then it goes back to plain paragraph instead of being told inline style left. So that's an important thing to remember when you're changing the alignment of something. Now, some people like to do the following. They take these and they use this fourth alignment one, which is on the second row of the button bars. This fourth alignment button is for justified, which basically says make the left and right margins even. Make them exactly flush left and right. Let's look at what that looks like on a post. Here it is. Now, it's not too bad when you've got a fairly long line of text, because the system that spreads out the words has more to play with, has more room to play with. You do tend to run into problems more when you have very narrow text, say right about here, let's say. You would get some really weird spacing. But even this, notice, look at the spacing between these words right here. Let's focus in on these. The spacing here looks like the spacing you get after a period, and that's what can get a little bit confusing for visitors. Let's compare the same post without justification, so it's left aligned. We can see more easily where sentences are ending and new ones are beginning, whereas when you go to here, it's a little tougher to tell. It just looks like all the words are evenly spaced apart. And that can be a bit confusing for the eye. So what you're gaining in symmetry here of having these nicely lined up on both sides, you're losing visually for the visitor to sort of say, this is a sentence, this is a word, this is a break in a sentence, this is a break between words. Anyway, something to keep in mind when you're thinking about using justified text. And again, to get rid of it, I just click the button again and we go back to left aligned. One other type of alignment you'll use quite often actually is block quoting. So that's this button right here, looks like quotation marks, and you just hit that and notice what it does. This will depend entirely on your style sheet. In this case, it's given it quite wide margins left and right and italicized it. So this is meant to be quoting someone or quoting from a website or wherever you're taking the quote. And this will vary according to your theme. It will also vary whether you see it exactly the way it's going to be on the website. So let me update this. And we go back to our preview there. Let's preview our changes. Now we're actually going to see this live on the website. See how it's spaced it and italicized it. So what we see in the post does reflect what you see on the website. Not all themes have a style sheet that displays exactly what you're going to see on the site. So you may see things differently in the text editor compared with on the site. So be prepared for that. It'll show you something. It'll distinguish that it's block quote, but it may not show you exactly what you're going to get on the website. Anyway, there's a few tips on how to align your text in different ways.